It's just after 12 o'clock on a happy hump day, Wednesday, trash night again. So, thank you guys for being here, and this will be recorded so we can send it out to those people who are too busy writing contracts and showing property to join us today. I do have something I want to share with you, but first, of course, we're going to defer to our core partners to
I
get any
will.
updates that they might have, and
I
then we'll
Let me
talk
start
about.
with Dawn. Dawn's on the phone. She
Oh,
said that she sends her love, and I told her that I would tell you all to make sure you send all your business to her. So send all of your insurance business to her, Dawn
that's
Kay.
That's right. That's right. Well, thank you, Don, for that great reminder. Any and all things insurance must be referred to Dawn Kay because she's the best, and there's nobody else that can do it like she can do it. So I do have some septic tank and system information I want to share with you after we hear from our core partners because they recently changed the law around disclosures and some of the verbiage in our contracts with respect to septic systems and what may or may not be required. And so I'll share with you those updates and as they appear in our RAIN contract, our most up-to-date version of our RAIN contract. And we'll talk about that briefly because if you haven't noticed yet, in Suffolk and some parts of Chesapeake and in Isle of Wight County, we do see a lot of septic systems, and so I don't know if you're familiar with the process yet, but I'll go through it quickly just so that you have a little bit of a background and some level of knowledge with respect to septic systems. But before I do any of that, we will defer to our friend, our partner, Mr. John Haug with Prosperity Home Mortgage, and see if he has any updates for us. John?
Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Good to see everybody here. As far as updates go, we're seeing continued stability in the markets in general. We're seeing rates stay in check. They are predicting that they're going to creep up a little bit here in the spring and summer, but still stay pretty low. But what I want to kind of talk about today, pretty briefly, was VHDA loans. I've gotten a lot of questions from agents about just in general, just some basic information about VHDA loans and kind of how you can utilize them for your business and kind of knowing just enough to be dangerous to kind of at least move the conversation in the right direction for your first-time homebuyer clients. So VHDA loans are through VHDA is something you'll hear. It's Virginia Housing Development Authority. They've recently rebranded and they call themselves just Virginia Housing now. So, but if you go to VHDA.com, that's their website. And they're a quasi-government entity. They're supported by the state of Virginia and their goal is to increase home ownership within Virginia and provide programs to help first-time home buyers do so. When I first started the business, it wasn't only first-time home buyers. VHDA had programs utilized for existing buyers as well. That quickly changed after the housing bubble burst, and now they focus solely on first-time home buyers. So first, the definition of a first-time home buyer is, as far as VHDA is concerned, is someone who has not held interest in a primary residence within the last 3 years. So why the primary residence is important is because that's a big difference from other first-time homebuyer programs who say you can't have held interest in any property within the last 3 years. If let's say someone owned a property in North Carolina and they moved here for their job, they've been renting here for 4 years, but they haven't been living at the property that they owned or they still own in North Carolina, it's no longer a primary residence. So they haven't held interest in a primary residence for the last 3 years. So VHA kind of still considers them to be a first-time home buyer for their programs, which is a pretty big deal. So again, 3 years is the rule. VHDA, the main kind of program is down payment assistance, and they do it in two different ways. One is giving it through a grant, which is money you don't have to pay back, and they cover the normal down payment except for 1%. So if it's a conventional loan, it's normally 3% down. They give you a 2% grant. If it's FHA loan, the down payment's usually 3.5%. They give you 2.5%. So they leave that 1% there. That program is nice. It's for people who probably already have some cash and they want to just keep some money in the bank. The grant program specifically has lower income limits. So you have to be able to, you have to make less to qualify for that program. In our area, it's with the family size of 2 or less or 3 or more. There's the two thresholds: 2 or less or 3 or more. So for 2 or less, it's 72,300, and then it's if 3 or more people in the household, it's 84,300 is for the grant. That's one option. The other option is through a down payment plus loan. Basically, it's a second loan that covers the down payment, and it's at the same rate and same terms, so 30-year fixed rate as the first. So you basically pay them back both simultaneously, and that income threshold is a little higher for that program. For 2 or less, it's 90,400, and for 3 or more, it's a 105,400 for the household. Now, the cool thing about the plus loan is that the income guidelines are only for the people that are on the loan and on the title. So that's important because you could have 2 people. One person makes $90,000 and they have a kid. So it's a family size of 3 or more. So it's maybe a couple and they have a child or whatever. You know, you could have an elderly parent as a dependent also. And then you have the spouse or other person in the family maybe making $50,000. Well, together they make $140,000. But if just the one person making 90 is on the loan VHDA and they're first-time home buyer, they can meet that parameter of being under the income limit. As for the grant, it's total household income. They look at everybody that's in there, total no matter what, if they're on the loan or not. But specifically for the plus loan, it's just the people that are on the loan. So it can really be a good avenue for people who are even as a couple or as a household make more than the income limit. So that's the income limit. So that's one thing. They have a 620 minimum credit score, similar to us, and they offer FHA and conventional programs. And again, so the down payment assistance is the big deal, especially right now when the seller's not paying closing costs. So it's harder to get closing costs negotiated. Well, people may have the down payment, but do they have the down payment and the closing costs? Because that essentially doubles what they have to bring to the table. From if we were talking to the same person a year ago, getting closing costs was likely. Therefore, it would, if you had to bring money, you could just bring the down payment and be okay. If the seller paid closing costs nowadays, you very likely if it's a competitive situation, you have to do both, right? So VHDA allows the client. Marvella's client was pre-approved by someone else before she met Marvella. They don't offer VHDA, and she has the money for the down payment, and she may even have money for the closing costs, but it would kind of tap her out. So Marvella had me reach out to her, and we were able to pre-approve her for the same amount as the other lender did, FHA, and we're going VHDA. We're going to cover the down payment, and if your credit score is over 680, you actually get an extra 1.5% on the plus loan, so it covers actually a little bit more than just a down payment. So it basically reduces the total cash close, even if the seller doesn't cover any closing costs. So I mean, she was so excited because she was expecting to have to bring, $10, $11, $12, $13,000. Now she's bringing close to $5,000 or $6,000. Even if the seller doesn't pay closing costs, if the seller pays closing costs, she can come to the table with nothing. So her mind was blown. And this is important. A lot of lenders don't participate in the VHDA programs. And the reason why is because there's not a lot of money in them for lenders. There's more paperwork, and there's lenders don't make a lot of money on them, but we think they're an important program for our clients, and we participate. I have more VHDA loans than anybody else in my entire company, and I have done that for the last several years. I'm a huge fan of VHDA. So in a nutshell, that's the VHDA program. You have to be a first-time home buyer. You have to be with the income limits. 620 credit score. The couple things to think about for VHDA, and then I'll move on and let the next person talk, is they have a hard cutoff on the debt to income ratio. So 45% on the debt to income ratio is, you can't go a penny over it, as opposed to standard FHA where you can go up, they have much more flexibility. Maybe you can go up to 50, 52, 53, 54% potentially. You can't do that for VHGA. 45 is the cutoff. They have some quirky rules, like if you have ever had a foreclosure ever, talking about like 40 years ago, and it shows up on a special report that all lenders have, it's called Loan Safe, then you can have issues with, sorry, put that on silent. You have issues with qualifying if you've had recent late payments. That's one thing. Other thing is they have an acreage limit of 2 with exceptions up to 5, but they will not give an exception over 5 acres. So sometimes you have a property that's 6 acres or something weird like that. It's rare, but it could be an issue. So I mean, those are the big things. I mean, and again, that's something that I will, as far as the credit side and the qualifying side, I'll look at that for your client. But that can be if someone's pushing up to their max amount, and then you have flood insurance or you have an HOA fee or something like that, it can be a little tricky because if you go over 45.01, you're done. And then depending on the situation, if we don't have a lot of flexibility in the income or the rate, then it could be tough. So we'll have that conversation with you and your client about making sure that we look at the specific property before we pull the trigger on an offer. So it's one thing to kind of just be aware of when you're talking to someone who's renting, who is their biggest issue is getting the down payment or the cash to close. Otherwise, they can qualify for the payment. The VHGA is huge for your non-veteran clients, right? Because it's the only option really in town around here where you can get into a house with no money down. It's really powerful. So great program. Again, I'm a huge fan. Does anyone have any questions about the VHGA program at all, or any of kind of the parameters I discussed?
I have a question. So can you remind us how you calculate that 45% debt to income ratio?
Great question. Okay. And this really gets into the nuts and bolts of how any lender identifies how much someone can qualify for. And this is pretty important. You might have learned it during your agent training, kind of what a debt to income ratio is. You hear lenders say DTI, that's debt to income ratio. And so DTI, debt to income. So let's do a quick scenario. Let's say, just easy math, someone makes $120,000 a year salary. That'd be nice, right? $120,000 a year salary. That means that your monthly gross income is $10,000, right? If you make $120,000 a year. And so you have no bonuses, you have no overtime, you have no commission, you have no anything else. That's just your income. That's important. Okay. So if that's your salary, you take that $10,000 monthly. So first we have to identify the gross monthly income. That's important depending on how you're paid. If it's, if it fluctuates depending on commission or overtime or bonuses. I asked this question to dive into that a little deeper, but without getting into the weeds. Once we identify that gross monthly income, you multiply it times 45%. So again, easy math, since it's $10,000 a month, 45% of that number is $4,500, right? And then that number, that 45% represents the maximum monthly debt obligation payment-wise that the client could qualify for, including everything that's on the credit report, anything they have as far as, garnishments, tax obligations, IRS, alimony, child support, right? And then the monthly mortgage payment. So what we do is we subtract the obligations. So let's say they have student loan payments, car payments, secured loan payment. We subtract that from the $4,500, and whatever's left over is the maximum payment that they qualify for. And then we take that payment, and depending on the program, we go backwards and we equate that to the sales price, right? So let's say that they have $2,500 in monthly payments from the 45, then what's left over is a $2,000 payment that they can qualify for to meet that at that 45% threshold. And there's certain stipulations and kind of booby traps, like, how to calculate student loan payments that are in forbearance or deferment, depending on the loan type. whether or not we can pay off an obligation at or before closing to minimize that payment. So there's things that every good lender does or knows how to do to kind of finagle the guidelines. But what can impact that thing is that, let's say you pre-approve somebody for like a standard house, and then all of a sudden they find a condominium that has a $208 monthly condo fee. Well, you can't buy the same house, the same sales price, because that we have to count that condo fee, and that pushes up that monthly housing payment, right? So if you're already at your max on your payment with a standard house, when you add in the extra payment for the property, you can go over that 45%. And sometimes it doesn't matter depending on the loan program. Sometimes we have room, but that's what's important when anything is weird with the property. Flood insurance, condo fee, HOA fee, it's assessed for a lot more than it's selling for whatever reason, and the taxes are high. Things like that are weird. We need to kind of keep our eye on that to make sure it doesn't push us over, especially if we're already kind of pressing against the ceiling of our maximum. And sometimes you guys know that, sometimes you don't. But just keep that in mind. Does that make sense about how I arrived at that 45% number?
Yeah, that was excellent. Yeah, really appreciate that that explanation. That I think that probably helps a lot of us. Yeah, better understand. But I still don't know what the hell I'm supposed to do with the other 55% of my income. So.
Well, most of it's gone from taxes anyways. You know what I'm saying? The fact that we pre-approve people on gross income is silly, right? Because it's not what they take home.
Right.
But so a lot of it's through taxes and other stuff that we don't count. We don't count utilities. We don't count your monthly obligations for your cell phone, your groceries. These are things that we are basically already included in that number. We just count things on your credit report and maybe other things that you may have, like child support or garnishments or tax liens, payments, stuff like that. So
excellent. Thank you, John. Appreciate it, man.
No problem.
Fantabulous. So hey, Brian, how's things over there at Sage Title Group, my friend?
Hey, great, doing good. I hope everybody's well. We have been jamming here. First of all, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, good. So first thing I wanted to start with is our class that we're having. I don't know, Stacia, did you send out this flyer on the auction class? I don't see Stacia.
That was the one from a while ago, right?
Yeah, this class is February 17th, so it has been a while ago, but I think it's going to be a hot class because there's a rumor that there's not a lot of properties out there for your buyers, right? So this auction class may open up a few ideas and suggestions and websites on how to take advantage of some auction properties. So Matt's going to do the class. It's the 17th, 1 o'clock to 2. It's a free hour of CE, so no charge at all. And he's going to go over the goal of the class. He sent me the goal. He says the goal of the class is to educate the real estate professional on the whole auction process and to be aware of any pitfalls or issues as you represent an auction buyer. So I think it's going to be really good. He said there's a lot of websites out there that might open up some more properties. So I think it's really, with the inventory shortage, I think it's going to be a great class. So far, nobody signed up from Suffolk yet. So if you want to sign up, just send me your license number and your email, and then Matt will send out the Zoom presentation. He'll give you the link for the class a day before.
I'll attach the flyer when I send out the YouTube video.
Perfect. There are about 10 people that have signed up from another office, but I would love to have some of you out there in Suffolk to join the class because, hey, it's anything else. It's a free hour of CE, so you can't go wrong with that. So the other thing is new orders that come in. We started a new thing called the Exchange. And I'll send out some flyers on this in the next few days, but it's a new way to communicate with you. And I think it's going to enhance our communication because each month it seems like we're having record month after record month, which is great, but we want to still be able to communicate with you as the agent, the borrower, the seller, the lender, the candlestick maker, the surveyor, everybody, right? So I think this is going to help us. I'm going to send out some information, but any new orders that come in, we sign them up on the exchange. So you'll be getting some information where you can actually, after the closing, you can download some docs, you can have this dashboard. I mean, it does a lot of neat things that we're really excited about. And a lot of other companies will not have this. So I think we're at the, like Long and Foster, we've got the most tools, most innovative, and it keeps changing for the better. So we're definitely rolling that out. So as I get more information, I will forward it. But there will be, I think you'll like the exchange. Also, our calculator is on our website now, where you go sagetitlegroup.com. You'll see it's the actual calculator that Kelly and Sharon uses and Jason a lot. Right on there, you click on there and you can do your seller net sheets, your buyer sheets, your rent versus buy sheets. It'll do flyers. So that's where it's located now. If you don't have that, go to sagetitlegroup.com, the far right, click on there, and you can sign up for the calculator if you're not already on there. I know Kelly Foster uses the heck out of that thing, and it helps her with secure listings. But I think it's a great tool. We've got all the tools and all the players here, right? So the sky's the limit.
Awesome site. Everybody should use it, especially for their sellers, because it gives almost the exact number that you can sit and match at the table.
Thank you, Kelly. Your check's in the mail.
No, that's exactly right. I love that thing too. And so I always encourage people to get with you or to get with somebody and make sure that they know how to access that, so that they can figure out those closing costs on behalf of their client. And I always include that version of a seller net sheet versus the version that is, in our listing template. So it's definitely a good product, and
it's easy.
It is easy. Yeah. So cool. Thank you, Brian. Appreciate it. Yeah. Excellent. Anybody got anything to add before we move on? Any questions? Oh, I just got a text. Let me see. This could be important. This could be big news. This could be really big news. It is big news, actually. It's breaking news. This is the first I've heard of it. Kalita is now active in DPOR. So congratulations, Kalita. Your license is now activated. So fantastic.
You'll be seeing it.
Thank you. I feel like crying, you guys. I'm grateful.
Now you'll be seeing a bunch of emails from me. So be ready.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'm so excited.
Watch your email there, and you'll get some stuff there from Stacia. But congratulations, you are now officially an active agent. So
Thank you.
all right, guys. Well, I will jump over here and start sharing my screen real quick. I want to show you what I had in mind, what the plan was for today, and let's see if I can find it here. So. Are you guys seeing my Adobe PDF? The septic systems?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Yep.
Cool.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Cool. So Virginia Association of Realtors recently made some edits, and they put this presentation together so that we could talk about septic systems and have those answers here in front of us. And so they've made some edits to our RAIN contract. And some of the terminology around septic systems. And so because we do have a large number of septic systems in our region, certainly Suffolk and Isle of Wight, Southampton County, we see them all the time. I have a septic system, and lots and lots of other people have septic systems. You do need to be familiar with this process and the language around a septic, because if you're showing a buyer a home that has a septic system, that buyer may well want to get that septic system inspected. And so there used to be, different versions of what was considered a septic inspection. But for example, the walkover inspection, and it used to be that just about anybody could do it, including a home inspector could do a walkover inspection of a septic system. And so that was causing some problems in the industry and getting some people in trouble. And so the Association of Realtors has made some edits and some changes. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. So I will close this window. Let me see, go away here. And I'm going to go to a different window. All right, so I'm going to go here. And then we'll go here, maybe. Let's see. There. Did this work? This is supposed to be a PowerPoint. You guys see it?
Yes.
Cool. I never know what you guys are actually seeing. It's kind of weird to do it. But so there's 3 parts to this PowerPoint. It probably won't take us too long to get through it. I'll talk fast. But the Virginia General Assembly passed a new law in 2020 requiring septic inspections done in conjunction with a real estate transaction to be performed by a licensed inspector, which makes sense. But they've changed the definition of what that inspector is. And so that's what we're going to talk about. This created issues with some traditional methods of certifying a septic system, like the walkover inspections. The purchase contract required the seller to provide a certification. And then part 3 is the Virginia Realtor Standard Form Subcommittee voted to make changes to its residential purchase contract to accommodate these changes. So does the law require a septic inspection? No, absolutely not. If you have a client who's asking you, does the law require a septic inspection? The answer is no. But your lender or the buyer's lender may very well require a septic inspection, or the locality. Some counties will require a septic inspection at the sale of a property. This is not something that I've ever experienced here locally, but it is something to be aware of. And the different counties and authorities have timelines in place for when and how often those septic systems need to be pumped out. And so that's something too that your buyer may ask you is, well, how often does this thing get cleaned out? And for example, in Isle of Wight County, where I live, I understand it's every 5 years. Your septic system is supposed to be pumped out. And there's no real enforcement mechanism in place because, you know, I've been in my house for 7 years and nobody's ever come and knocked on my door to check and see if our septic has been inspected. But you do want to be aware of what it means to have a septic system. So the new law, and we're going to go down here to the highlighted portion, paragraph B. Any individual who holds a valid on-site sewage system operator, on-site sewage system installer, or on-site soil evaluator license pursuant to the law shall be authorized to perform a septic inspection in connection with any real estate transaction, including refinancing. So they have a very specific term called the accredited system inspector. But no person shall use the title accredited septic system inspector or perform a septic system inspection in connection with any real estate transaction unless he meets the requirements of this chapter. And you could be found guilty of a class 3 misdemeanor if you do that. And so previously to passing this new law, you know, you may have had people out there present themselves as, you know, licensed or accredited septic systems inspectors. And so now they have been very, very specific about what that means to be accredited. And so some of the immediate issues were concerns about the lack of inspectors, right? When they put this new law into place and limited the number of people who can actually perform the inspections, these are some of the concerns. There weren't enough inspectors in our area in the state of Virginia to meet the demand of all of these new required inspections. And so the Virginia Department of Health responded with some resources which did not provide much clarity on how to continue operations as normal. And then there were contractual requirements. Virginia Realtors Form Purchase Contract required the seller to provide the buyer with a certificate indicating no evidence of malfunction or needed maintenance. Contract language did not specify more than this, so many sellers accomplished this with a walkover inspection. And that seemed to be what the problem was. After the law passed, fewer licensed or accredited professionals were willing to provide such a certificate without a more extensive or expensive inspection. And that's because they're putting their name on it, right? They're signing that they've checked this system and that it appears to be in good working order. And so there's a huge amount of liability there. And so personally, I'm familiar with septic companies in our area who install and repair septic systems, but they will not put their name on a septic system inspection. So that's something to be aware of too. You can't just call up any septic company and expect them to certify or provide certification that a system is in good working order. And so you got to make sure that you find the right company to do that inspection when it's needed. I know I've ran into that a couple of times. And so there are some references here to the before and after, but the examples they're using are the Virginia Association of Realtors contract and not specifically our RAIN contract. And so I've pulled up our RAIN contract and I'll show you some examples of what that actually looks like for us. But this is the Virginia Realtors contract. So it's very, very similar. And if you ever go outside of the Hampton Roads area in facilitating a purchase or sale of real estate, it's possible that you're going to see these contracts. And so any of you can go to the Virginia Realtors Association webpage and log in using your NAR credentials and have access to these documents, these forms, and these contracts. It's entirely possible, for example, if you work with an agent out of the Richmond area, that you may be looking at this type of contract and documentation versus what we're also familiar with in RAIN. So can the parties still agree to a walkover inspection? Absolutely. Nothing in the law prohibits a walkover inspection. However, any septic inspection must be done by a licensed on-site sewage system operator, on-site sewage system installer, or on-site soil evaluator. And you may have difficulty finding an inspector who will do just a walkover because, again, they don't want to put their name on it if the only thing they've done is to walk over and say it appears to be working fine. They're going to want to actually dig into that thing, open up the septic tank and the distribution box and take a look to make sure there are no deficiencies. So that's that was the quick little PowerPoint there. I'm going to click over here and show you some RAIN examples. So this is our contract that we're also familiar with in RAIN, and so in paragraph 13 obviously is all about our inspections and the right to inspection and the request for inspections and the well inspection and the septic inspection. And so this is the septic inspection paragraph where we get to decide, who's going to provide or obtain and who's going to pay for the septic inspection at a property. It could be the buyer, seller, buyer, however you want to handle that in cooperation with your client, of course. But you can see here that they've added some new verbiage, some new language to the contract. And so I thought it was important that you know what that means. And so I'll show you an example of that as well. And then this too, they changed this last year. And so you need to decide then, shall or shall not the inspection include pumping of the septic system? For me personally, I don't know why you wouldn't want the septic system pumped. There is an additional charge. The septic companies I'm familiar with are usually $300 for the inspection and $300 for the pump. But normally when I'm writing an offer for a client, I ask the seller to provide at the seller's expense and to shall or include the pumping of the septic system. I feel like you know, you're going to get a better inspection if you can actually see to the bottom of the tank, right? And so that's the way I've always done it. But again, you know, it's through discussion with your client and what they would like to see happen around the idea of inspecting this septic system. And so if you I thought this was kind of neat. You can literally copy this, right? Do this, hit Control C, and then go to Google and type that in and find the law so that you know more specifically what it's referring to. So what does an accredited septic system inspector require? And so here then is the description of what that means. And so they have to have some national sanitation foundation or an equivalent national accrediting organization, which gives them this accreditation, accredited septic system installer. If they don't have that, again, they could be subject to a class 3 misdemeanor if they present themselves using that description. So I thought that was kind of interesting there. And then if we go, I wanted to go to, let's see, where is it? Where is it? No, too far. I passed it. So there's another part in here that talks about the septic system. So right here. So the seller represents and warrants that the property is not served by an on-site septic system, or that the property is served by an on-site septic system that is not subject to a waiver. So 99% of the time, if you're presenting an offer on a property that has a septic system, this is the box that you would check. It's not subject to a waiver. If it were subject to a waiver, then it should have been disclosed in the property listing. And so if there was no disclosure, then as a buyer's agent, we assume there was no waiver in place. But if there was a disclosure and there is a waiver, it may or may not be transferable. And so then you would have to check the appropriate box here. And the concept or the idea around this waiver is such that you could come upon a property that has in the past had some septic issues, and maybe it's non-functioning, maybe it doesn't work. Maybe they've modified the septic, and so they no longer have, you know, this big, huge drain field or leach field, as some people call it, but now they have a modified drain field, which is raised up above ground level. And so they could have gotten a waiver then from the county to allow that old non-functioning part of the septic system to remain. But those waivers aren't always transferable. And so you'll have to help your buyer in doing their due diligence to find out then if that waiver is transferable, because the county could make the buyer clean that up or correct that or repair that or remove that section of the old septic system, depending on the circumstances. And of course, you can, again, if you copy this code right here and just Control C, then you can go over here and find out then the validity of septic tank permits and what it means to have a waiver. And so they go into this lengthy description of what it might mean to have a waiver for a failing on-site sewage system. And so anyway, this is obviously, this is something that we see often, but I can tell you in my experience, I've never encountered a septic system with a waiver. So that's much, much less likely, less common. And most of the time, it's this box right here. Most of the time, it's incumbent upon the seller to make sure that the septic system is in good working order. That was it. Any questions? Was that helpful?
Hey,
Anybody?
Jason, I do have a quick question.
Yes.
So when we're the listing agent, obviously we rely on our seller for a lot of this information, but when let's just say that they say, do you know somebody that's out there that can do this? Okay, we ask, so we call and they go, oh yeah, we're licensed, but they're not licensed. Where does the liability fall on that? And how far do we have to go to make sure?
No, that's a great question. In fact, let me share my screen again, because there was something else that I wanted to show you and I forgot. So bear with me 1 second. All right, and so over here, if we go to DPOR, so go to DPOR license lookup, which probably most of you are familiar with. This is where we go to check how many CE credits we have and or need. But if you go right here to the little search box and put in septic and hit search, then you're going to get hundreds and hundreds of results that come up. So these are DPOR licensed septic contractors. And so this would be a really good place to look for people who have that certification or that license through the state. And then you can narrow that down by maybe putting in Chesapeake. Yeah, so here, all of these are in Chesapeake, for example, or we can back this out and we can go Suffolk, right? So here's a couple of them in Suffolk. So these are probably not the only companies, but these are companies who are licensed through DPOR. So it would be a really good place to start with this list here. And then you could do Smith Service, Smithfield. So yeah. And I know like the one that I use a lot is ABA Well and Septic. Been around forever. They're very common. A lot of real estate agents use them. And I think they're over in Windsor. Is that right, Kelly? Windsor?
Yes, sorry.
That's okay. That's okay. So yeah.
Ivor.
Ivor. Okay.
They're out of Ivor, I was gonna say. They're right there on that line.
Okay. Okay.
But
on
they
460.
they go everywhere.
Yeah. They've been all over the place. So
And if you need replacement for wells, then they can give you suggestions of people, but I would still look them up because they don't do that. They just give you people that can replace a well.
yeah. So that DPOR site, obviously it's not the end all be all, but it is a good place to start if you don't have any other idea. But you know, if you're ever in that situation, you know, just email the office and we'll spread the word and we'll help you find somebody, figure it out. So that's probably the easiest and the fastest solution is to just email your questions over and we'll help you get them answered. And you know, I think, you know, experience is the best teacher, right? I mean, none of us knew about septic systems until we were forced to learn about septic systems. So that's probably how it's going to work with most of us. So any questions or thoughts around that, y'all? Is that helpful?
Yes, it was helpful, Jason.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. All right, guys. So happy Wednesday. It's
Yep, you're not
Oh.
done.
tell me about it. What you got?
Photos,
Photos.
virtual Tidewater.
Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah. So
You told me to remind
yeah,
you.
so I did ask you to remind me. Thank you very much. So we have an account with Virtual Tidewater to do professional photography for any of the agents associated with this or the Smithfield office. And so what that means to you guys is that you have a standing $90 credit at Virtual Tidewater for professional photography. That $90 credit includes 20 professional photographs. And so it's up to you though to connect with or contact Virtual Tidewater to schedule those appointments. They have a link on their website where you can go directly to their calendar and schedule an appointment with one of their handful of photographers. We also do the very same thing with Raider Photography. And so Raider Photography, I think he's $100 instead of $90. But what you want to be aware of is that depending on the company, they have sometimes trip charges. So depending on how far out in the woods you are, or your property is, they may charge you an additional fee. So Virtual Tidewater, for example, to go to Surrey, charged an additional $15. And I think that same address would have incurred a $50 trip charge from Raider Photography. So I just want you guys to be aware of and be careful that we know, which company to use based on the trip charge or potential additional fees that you see. But I feel like it's very, very important for us to use professional photography, in just about every situation, with a few exceptions. I mean, sometimes it's not required. But if you feel like professional photography would benefit your seller and benefit your listing, then I want to make that available to you. And so Virtual Tidewater and Raider Photography are the two companies that I have partnered with to make sure that you have access to professional photography. So just keep that in mind and make sure that you check, if you want a virtual tour from them, or if you want drone photography or something like that, there could be an additional fee. Raider Photography does drone photos for just $50, for which I will pay for that as well. Virtual Tidewater's drone photography is much more expensive, and I can't pay for that. So if you guys do order something in addition to the most basic standard package of pictures, then you would be responsible for paying the difference before the company will release the pictures to us. So I just want you to be aware of that. That's the process. That's how it works. And I hope you guys find it valuable. I think it's really, really important.
And when you order through the website, I actually get notification that you've placed the order. I get notification when you make payment on the order, and I get notification when the order is finished. So I get a copy of those photos that you get as well. So you don't have to forward them to me as long as you've ordered them through the website. And if you're a new agent and you don't have a username yet, which everybody should by now, just say, hey, Stacia, I don't have a username, and I'll get that set up for you.
So
Excellent.
Stacia, quick question. Did you get a copy of those pictures they sent me
No.
last night?
No.
I didn't even get your order status. I heard about it yesterday.
All right. I'll forward them then.
Yes, please. And Brian, are you going to be at the office anytime in the next day or so?
That's a good question. Right now, there's nothing to come there, but if
Okay.
there's a closing, I definitely will come there.
No, I've got it. There's an EMD on my desk. I'm going to FedEx it to you guys tomorrow.
Or do you
Well,
want-
hey, Brian,
Hello?
Brian, can you hear me?
I can. Hey, Sora.
Oh, okay. I have a closing. We have the sellers. The buyers close on Monday, so we might have you scheduled out here Friday, tomorrow or Friday. I don't know if that helps either of you for that check thing, but
I mean, it will. If it's tomorrow, it's fine, or Friday. I'd be
Right.
FedExing it tomorrow. So
Yeah, I know we have availability Friday, Soren, but if you want to, do you want to send that check overnight, or do you want to Zocam it?
ask Josh. It's his client.
Josh don't know nothing about those OCAM.
Okay. Well,
Ask Josh about that. That's him.
well, you can FedEx it. We can send you a label if you want.
Oh, I'm not worried about the label. I'm not.
And then Soren, I guess if you set it up with Debbie, I'll see you. Debbie Nelson, I'll see you Thursday, tomorrow, or Friday, either way.
okay, I'll contact Debbie and see if that works, whatever we end up with, if that helps Stacia in any way.
Not me. It's Josh.
Good.
Thank you, guys. Happy
Well, I'm gonna-
Wednesday. Appreciate seeing you.
Yes.
Take care.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.